So I happen to have an FTB1 platform with an FTB 730 module. So the interfaces might vary between our different solutions and different software loads, but the idea or the setup of an OTDR will be very similar. Some of the options just might be in different locations. So let's go ahead and go straight into testing. So on the bottom left there, I'm going to select OTDR to launch the OTDR application. So you see a little splash screen here, so that'll start up and take us into the OTDR interface. So once the interface is up, you'll see that we are in the OTDR tab. So our OTDRs can double as a source as well. So if you need to generate a signal to do loss testing, you can do that in this area here. But for this training, we're going to stick to OTDRs. So one of the first things I want to look at is the bottom left to see what wavelengths I'm going to test. So today we're going to be testing with a 1310-1550 single mode OTDR. I'm actually going to disable 1310 for now and only test 1550 just for training purposes. Honestly, just to speed it up. And so instead of you watching both wavelengths test, we'll just be doing 1550. But in a real world test, and later on, we're going to activate 1310, but in a real world test, it's important to test a short wavelength and a long wavelength. So for this particular test, I'm going to set it at 1550. We'll come back to range, pulse width, and duration as we set up the test. I'm going to go straight over here to the right where we see these three icons. So this top icon is auto. So if I were to select this icon, it actually sets this unit into auto mode. So the range and the pulse width has grayed out. So essentially all I would do is clean my fibers, plug in the fiber under test, and hit start, and the OTDR would actually go out and do an auto acquisition for me. We're not doing that right now, so I'm going to disable that. Right below that is the real-time button. So if you see here in the top right, we have this big green start button. This is the start of analysis. If I were to press this RT button, or the real-time button, it would split the start button into two pieces, and the right side would be real-time, and the left side would be an average test. And so I usually leave this checked because I'll go back and forth between the two. And right below that is the extended acquisition parameters. So this is where you can null out your launch cables. So if you have a launch cable, this is where you would null it out. And so I do happen to have a launch cable in this particular test. It's about 500 meters, I believe, or actually, I think it's actually about a half a kilometer. So we'll go ahead and input this in here when we do the actual test. If you have a receive fiber, you can input that in as well. And then down here in the advanced parameters, this allows us to tweak some of the settings, whether or not we want to do a first connector check, whether or not we want to stay in full auto mode. So if I select this and go back